Attention parents and coaches. Do you wish you had a safe social media platform for your youth athletes? Fortunately for you, there's a revolutionary new app that helps with just that. Introducing Small Player, Big Play. Small Player, Big Play app provides young athletes, parents, and coaches a user-friendly sports social media platform. The app allows users to connect with friends, make new friends, create groups, text, chat, and post pictures and videos of you and your teammates participating in your favorite sport or activity. To begin, users can simply download and sign up for the app using an email account. Younger users have the ability to sign up using their smartphone and a parent's email address. From there, users can begin to interact and engage with other users of the app. Small Player Big Play app also gives users the ability to live stream full games and events. You can live stream your event so that friends, family, or anyone in the world can see you in action. Users can also share posts from the app to their other social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter. What are you waiting for? Get in the game and share your love of sports with the world. Download the Small Player Big Play app today.
Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports? Now on with the show.
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
Boring.
A weekly podcast about sports since 2011.
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
With a focus on football.
Kansas City 31, San Francisco 20. Mahomes takes the snap. He is just going to throw it long for Demarcus Robinson. It is going to use up all the time. The game is over, and the Chiefs' kingdom has firmly planted its flag on top of football's highest summit. The Kansas City Chiefs are champions of Super Bowl 54.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting across from me, as he always is, or almost always is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and we've reached that point of the year where we've hit playoff football, which is awesome. You know, it used to be that this week and next week were kind of equal in terms of the amount of football. So, next weekend usually gives you maybe some better games, but this year having the double triple header was
What do they call it? Super wild
card weekend.
Super wild card weekend.
I'm a fan. Surprised the NFL hit it out of the park again with their
setup and marketing.
I was going to say their product, the product that they end up producing. It can be a bumpy road sometimes, but they tend to stay the course. And man, I don't know what ratings and everything will be, but I can't imagine that they aren't going to be awesome. So.
Right.
Yeah, I like it.
So, first year with 3 games both days.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned to me in text that it was always, playoff games are great and everything, be able to focus on one game instead of watching Red Zone and, watching 7 or 8 games.
And that intensity's up, so.
Right, you focus on that and it really, truly means something, win or go home. But it was always so disappointing when, one, you had to wait on Saturday until 4 o'clock to get a game, but then on Sunday, when the 4 o'clock game ended, it was over.
Right. It was you had this weird
long wait on Saturday and early finish on Sunday.
Right. You had this weird 27-hour window basically. Yeah, it was just I don't know. It was great, but you had those extra games in. The game that's happening right now wouldn't be happening on a normal wild card weekend.
Right.
and the game that happened early yesterday wouldn't have happened at that time on.
Find a need, fill a need.
Yeah.
All I did was add 2 teams to the playoffs, one in each conference. That's it.
Right.
That's all it took.
I don't know how I feel about only the 1 seed getting the bye yet. Like, I don't, like, not like, and I feel like this year I can really talk to it because it really playoffs had no effect on my team. Like, my team had an effect on the playoffs. But, like, I was talking, it was a super low stress weekend for me. There were a ton of games, and we may come to this at some point during the show today, but, like, this year, there isn't a team where I'm like, I absolutely can't stand that team, and there's no way I want them to win. I said that earlier today, and my wife goes, the Steelers are in it. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. There's one team that I can't stand, and I hope they don't win at all. But, like, even that's not exactly true because I've reached the point in my dislike of the Steelers where I could at least be happy for my wife. She'd be excited if they won. To be completely fair, that's probably only a couple years where I could even say that. Like, up until a couple years ago, I probably wouldn't have said that at all. I would not have said that at all.
Things are not looking good, though. Are you
I'm
happy
telling
you're
you.
here with me right now?
Yeah, so she was upstairs because she had gone up to put one of our other son, like our older son, to bed. One of our other sons, like we split it, so like we rotate. Like I have one night, she has the other one, and then we
do
rotate.
what you gotta do.
Right. But on Sundays, she always has the older son because he goes to bed a little later than the younger one. So she hadn't come back down yet, and I was gonna come. I was coming down and like coming over here. And so, like, usually I turn on, like, the pregame stuff, and I leave before the game usually comes on. So I don't know that she's probably downstairs unless, like, she got distracted by doing something upstairs, like either working on something or, I don't know, we did laundry, putting clothes away. I don't know. But when she comes down, if she sees that score, she's not going to be happy.
She might be a turn it on, turn it off kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
there'll probably
Abe
be
Simpson walking in.
There very well may be a Hallmark movie on when I get home instead of the football game. So,
yeah, it's not a great start for the Steelers. They're down 14-0 early against the Cleveland Browns, and nothing's going their way. But I said last week that it was a lock that the Steelers would beat the Browns, and I said to Justin as we were watching Pittsburgh fall apart in the first few minutes that I'm still taking Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's coming back.
I'll believe it.
I'll
believe it when I see it. So
Pittsburgh is coming back.
I've been like, my phone's been blowing up with multiple Cleveland fans actually, and
Wait, there are more than one?
Well, both of them
In your life, there's more than one.
There is more than one, and the ones like somehow this made me more nervous, and I know exactly why it is. We talk about it all the time. It has changed it changes your expectations.
Yep.
It changes your expectations.
Because now if you lose, like, that's terrible. You're up by 2 touchdowns.
Right.
I mean, ask the Titans how they feel being up by 10.
Because listen, if the Steelers would have jumped out by 14 right away, and then they play even the rest of the way, and they lose 35-21, right? Like, all of a sudden, you're just like, oh man,
I wish we didn't start so bad.
Right, we didn't start so bad. They didn't have their coach. They didn't have Olivia
Vernon.
Right, they didn't have all their guys. Denzel Ward wasn't playing. Like, you see all those things. Now you're up 14-0, man. Like, yeah, and it's the Steelers, man. I'm telling you, I've seen this how many times.
We saw it just a few weeks ago.
I will believe it when it happens. Like, I'll believe that they have lost this game when the Browns are actually playing next week. Not even at the end of this game, but like when the Browns are playing next week, that's when I would believe it. Yeah. But
all right. Well, before we dive into all the games, I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Bill Mays and my dad and Mays Sandwich Shop for everything they do for us, and also the Small Player Big Play app. Remember the youth sports app that you can download for free on your Apple or Google devices, and you can stream the games or you can watch streams of games. And there's a big one coming this week. Our Wilson Bulldogs are traveling to Berks Catholic to play a boys basketball game on Tuesday. And the game will be streamed on the Small Player Big Play app. So if you are a Wilson or Berks Catholic fan, you will want to download the Small Player Big Play app, and you can watch the stream of the game through the app. I do not know the pricing structure or availability of that, but it is not expensive at all. It's a great way to support the schools because a large portion of the cost to stream goes directly to the schools involved. So look at it as you're getting entertainment and you're also supporting the local schools. So
Right, whose structure, like, that Berks Catholic Wilson game, like in a normal year, that would be a huge game. The gym would be packed for that game, and so you're able to help the schools a little bit that way. You can check out Stevie Mitchell play.
Yeah,
Like,
who
oh
just
my gosh,
set the Wilson record for points scored in a single game in Wilson history. Although I guess that has asterisks because prior to the merger, someone in the 50s scored 80.
Okay.
I think it was 81 points, but that was when it was Sinking Spring High School and Wilson High School were separate.
Hey,
So he was a member of the Sinking Spring High School team. I think it was 81 points in like 1952. It was just broken by some guy named Will Chamberlain like a couple years later or something. The state record for points in a game. But yeah, so congratulations to Stevie Mitchell and the Wilson Bulldogs team, which is, it's closing in on the middle of January, and they've played all of 2 games. But that's what life with COVID is like.
Right, and they've, they're making the best out of it. I know we talked. Well, I don't know that we actually talked about it, but their first game was at Marks Hall, which we've mentioned before on some of those. Whenever Pottsville comes up, usually in football, we talk about Pottsville in glancing references here and there. But, so make the most of it, and Stevie certainly has.
What was it, 41 he finished with?
41, yeah.
41 of the team's, 68.
And they were down a point with a few minutes left and went on a run.
They were down as many as, I think, 3.
Yeah, and got it done. So.
And that was against Muhlenberg, defending 5A District 3 champions, coached by a former Reading star player, Tyrone Nesby, who has completely turned around that program.
Yeah. Well, and I said to my dad, I was like, that was tough for Wilson last year because of the way it ended. They were making a run into states. They'd only lost 1 game and had beaten the team that was the quote-unquote favorite to win the 6A, right? Methacton. They beat them at Methacton earlier in the year.
2 or 3 points.
Yeah, in a classic game.
It was a year ago. It was in January.
And so, you don't know. It's really tough to do that. Methacton had been runner-up the year before and returned, I think, 4 of their 5 starters or something like that. Something absurd. They were a really good team. And they had a really good team they were going to have to play in the next day or so, of the tournament. So, you never know what would happen, but that's kind of the reality of it. But Muhlenberg was in the same spot. They won their first ever district title, I think, and then also were rolling and had won their last state game.
And so was Reading.
Right.
Only lost to Wilson by 2 points in the district final, and they won their first 2 state games. Before the season ended. Oh, and they return a whole bunch of their players, including a transfer from Muhlenberg that was a freshman phenom last year.
Yeah.
So basketball in this area is certainly at a high point right now.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get to the continuation of the regular season, get to the Berks playoffs, district playoffs, and the abbreviated state playoffs.
Right.
You have to win your district to make it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But again, download the Small Player Big Play app on your Apple or Google or Android devices and watch the Wilson boys basketball team as they travel to Berks Catholic Tuesday evening. Again, you can watch that on Small Player Big Play. All right, so to football.
Yeah.
Mr. Raffoff. We're going to start in order, so we're going to start with our first game from yesterday.
By the way, did you see the Browns game now? It is now 21-0.
Oh, boy, that's even worse. I stand by it. Pittsburgh's coming back, Jamie. I'm here for you. And my family in Pittsburgh.
I'm going to go home and the locks are going to be changed.
Yeah, you are not welcome here, sir. Good day. So, yeah. The game started yesterday, like Justin had mentioned. Got things rolling early this year, 1 o'clock on Saturday. And that one was the Bills-Colts game, if I'm thinking correctly.
Yep.
And we got to see Buffalo win their first playoff game since 1995, 27-24 over the Colts. what were your takeaways from that game? I think it met our expectations.
I think
it was
it
close
played
with
out
the Buffalo victory.
right. I think it played out a lot how I thought it would. The Colts. I know, like some people were down on some of the decisions the Colts made. Like those are the decisions they make all the time. Like that's how they do it. They're aggressive, and if they went in their favor, people would have been like, that's great. I don't understand. Now listen. I am of the mindset where, like, I sit there and when my team goes for 2 after a touchdown, I constantly am like, just kick the extra point, just kick. Like, I get it. But mathematically speaking, you have a greater than 50% chance of scoring on your 2-point conversion try, which means it is better to go for it 2 twice than it is to kick the extra point.
Well, a few years ago, we saw the Steelers doing that a lot.
They were doing it all the time. And so the Colts did that. And people were like, why do they do it? Well, and they got it the next time, which I know people are like, well, if they would have kicked and then they wouldn't have gone for 2 if they kicked the first time.
Like it again. And with how many extra points we've seen missed this year.
Right.
It's
so
not
like
a guarantee.
Right. So like, and I get, and I fall into that category sometimes, like just take the point. But like, that was one of them. When they had when the Colts had 2nd and goal at the 1 and end up having 4th and goal at the 4 and don't score, that's tough. I'm more of I can understand questioning play call, and not necessarily that play call. On like third down when you run the sweep instead of maybe just trying to score on a different play there. That I'm more open to questioning than going for it. I mean, you get down to the 1 in a playoff game and you're on the road, you need touchdowns. They'd already been down there and gotten a field goal before. Like, I don't blame them. You got to play to win the game, right? So, from that standpoint, I don't have any issues with that. Colts defense was good. I feel like I don't know. I feel like at moments during the season they look really good, and then I feel like they're good but not great defense. Does that make sense?
No, because people talked about the Colts defense, and then every time I got to watch them, I was like, they're fine, they're okay, but nothing special.
Right. They're not. I'm not confident that like, I'm going to go out there and they're going to win me a game, especially against Josh Allen and the Bills right now. Now, like, again, they played respectable against the Bills. Like, they really did. They played well, but I mean, you're going to have to play great against the better team, and the better team won. The Bills were the better all-around team. I thought some of the things that, Bills fans that I know were worried about was like Jonathan Taylor in the running, and they were able to run like some big chunk plays. Like, that could be a problem as they move on. But yeah, I think the Bills. I mean, it was interesting. The Bills weren't lights out. I feel like the Bills played maybe like a B game, but B was good enough for them this week. I think they're going to need to be better to win next weekend. They're perfectly capable of it, and I think they've shown that over the course of the season. But I think a repeat performance of if they play exactly how they did this week, next week, I don't know that it'll be enough. Now it could be. I don't. It could be enough again. But I think they're going to need to step it up a little bit. But that's not to say they won't.
Right. I didn't get to see much of the Bills-Colts game. I followed along mostly via text message updates from you and Adam. But I think you captured it completely. Buffalo proved they're the better team. They were able to beat them without their A play.
Right.
I think they were giving good effort. They just didn't execute properly in some facets. A couple maybe officiating things here and there didn't help.
Yeah.
But in the end, they got the W. First time in 25 years. They can move on. It'll be interesting to see what happens because, I mean, if the Steelers-Browns game stays the way it's going now, Cleveland will be heading to Kansas City.
Roethlisberger just threw a pick, and they have the ball inside the red zone again.
Buffalo will be welcoming Baltimore to Orchard Park.
Which I was surprised that Baltimore didn't try to run the ball a little bit more earlier in the game. I say that. Lamar Jackson ran for like 130 some yards, and they were able to run when they needed to in the second half. So yeah, but I just, you better be able to stop the run next weekend.
Yeah. So game 2 yesterday in the 4:00 spot was the NFC West
A
matchup.
snooze fest.
Despite scoring 50 points, much to the chagrin of Adam, the Rams beat the Seahawks 30-20. And a quasi upset. I mean, if you're going by the points and the spread, it was an upset, and by our expectations, it was an upset. But it's one of those that we were like, I could see where the Rams win this game, and that's what they did by 10. And this was a game that they started with their backup quarterback, who took a gnarly hit and had to leave. Jared Goff, the normal starter, but was the backup because he had thumb surgery like 10 days ago, came in and did enough to get the win. But most of this was on the Rams defense. The Rams defense, led by Aaron Donald along the line and Jalen Ramsey in the secondary, shut down the Seahawks, who, the first 8 weeks of the season were unstoppable on offense and had an awful defense. And then things kind of flipped where the offense couldn't score, but the defense finally figured out what they were doing. They made the playoffs. They had a good run. I think they 12-4.
Yeah.
But they have an early exit, losing to a division rival.
First time Pete Carroll and the Seahawks have lost at home in the playoffs.
In under his guidance,
I think so.
and as a team in like 12 years or something like that.
Right. I just, I don't know what went wrong there. But they've got the outside weapons. They couldn't really run the ball very well because the offensive line, I think, isn't that good again. And that's been the problem for how long in Seattle. Like you said, defensively, they came along like rather well. And one of those touchdowns was a pick six. So 23 points. We always say it. You give up less than 24 points in an NFL game, you got to win that game.
Yes.
And the defense gave up 23 points. You got to win that game. Like, if you tell me you've got Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and you're not going to score more than 23, that's a problem. And that's happened a number of times down the stretch this year.
It's 28-0 in the first quarter, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
No reality did I see this coming.
They are lucky that there are no fans there right now.
There are fans there.
Only friends and family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, only friends and family and front office. So,
all of them are like,
they may still be booing.
I'm gonna head out.
Right.
It's not good.
If this holds, like, Baker Mayfield does a TikTok dance on center field, right? Like that has to happen, right? Or does he plant a flag like he did a la OU?
That's the expectation, and this will link into something we'll talk about in a little bit. That's what everyone wants to happen because, of all the discussions.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to do it.
No,
it
but
doesn't mean you
I'm
have
over
to
here
do it.
rooting for chaos, man. I
I know,
chaos.
right? It doesn't technically involve either of us, but yeah.
It does, because if I'm at home, I'm going to have to pretend like, that's terrible. That's the worst thing. And I wouldn't see it anyway because it's not going to be on. But,
yeah, 28-0, the Browns are up on the Steelers. That one, if anyone had any bets with the Steelers winning, you're in trouble.
I'm still telling you, I'll believe it when I see it.
Imagine the person who took the deep down bet of Browns by 30 or something like that, and right now they're like, yes! Like, it pays, plus 1,800 or something like that.
So here you go. Like, I know this sounds crazy, but, do you think it's impossible for well, let me reword that. Wouldn't you say it's still possible that the Steelers could outscore the Browns by 4 touchdowns over 3 quarters of play?
Yes.
Right, and that's why,
ask the Houston Oilers about Frank Reich.
Yeah, and the tough thing is, well, here's the good news if you're the Steelers. You can't run the ball anyway when you're not going to need to now. You need to chuck it every down.
Anyone who took that super boost of Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster combining for over 125 yards, probably pretty happy because they're just going to be chucking the ball left and right.
Right. And the Browns are down a bunch of starters. again.
including their top corner.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I don't.
So I remember, and how crazy is, I know we jumped ahead to the Browns Steelers here, but like it is crazy. I remember, was it the 2003 game or was it 2002? I forget which one. What the last time the Steelers made the last time the Browns made the playoffs
You'll get it.
with Kelly Holcomb.
Was that who was the
And
quarterback?
he threw for 400. He threw for 430 yards against the Steelers.
Oh yes.
However, they lost because they had a lead in the fourth quarter, and the Steelers and Tommy Maddox led the comeback. So I think that would have been like January of 2003. I think.
Right.
But like, how crazy is it that it's 18 years apart, the Browns making the playoffs, and both times they have to play at the Steelers when they do. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
like,
for it to work out that
right.
way.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier because what happened with that was, like with Tommy Maddox at the time, like I was at school in Pittsburgh, and like everybody was like ripping the Eagles because this is like before the Eagles like had started their like, it was right at the beginning of when they started the run where they went to the NFC Championship a bunch of times in a row.
Yep.
And like everybody's like talking like Tommy Maddox. They started the year with Cordell Stewart at quarterback, and they went to Tommy Maddox, and everybody's like, Donovan McNabb's terrible. I'm like, you tell me that Tommy Maddox, you like Tommy Maddox better than you like Donovan McNabb. Like, don't get me wrong. Well, you know what? As of right now, Donovan McNabb is still the best quarterback the Eagles franchise has ever had.
Because of the longevity.
With the things like, I don't count like Michael Vick as an Eagle being better than Donovan McNabb. Does that make sense? Like, you could argue that like Michael Vick over, now it's shortened, but like that's weird. That would be an interesting debate actually, but you know what I mean? Right. But like, I think you could argue that Donovan McNabb is still the best Eagles quarterback. Tommy Maddox is not anywhere close to the best Steelers quarterback, and was not that. I mean, he was great that one year, and they were able to get it what they needed. But he was, as you can tell, they went to bed right after that, and that was that. So, oh my goodness.
So, the third game. Are we done with the second game yesterday? Rams Seahawks. We didn't have too much to say.
Seahawks are a massive disappointment. The Rams are doing great, but like I don't know. Cooper Kupp had tweaked his knee late in that game, or tweaked something in his leg late in the game. Jared Goff's like thumb is still a disaster. Like he couldn't even. Did you see that thing where they showed like?
No, I didn't.
So when they went to like his lineman went to pick him up the one time. He pulled his right arm back, and like he has to be pulled up by his left hand because he can't even like grip the guy's hand with his right hand.
Wow,
like
that's awful.
He dislocated, broke his thumb, and had surgery, and a week later is playing in a game. That's nuts, but
that's insane.
Yeah, like, and that was fine against the Seahawks, who played as they've played most of the last third of the season. I don't know that that's going to fly next week.
The Steelers right now, like. People are like, see, this you can't tell me you didn't see this coming. I was like,
Well, here's the thing, and we said it, but like the Steelers over the last month have played 1.5 good quarters. They played 20 minutes of good football. Well, if you count some of the Browns game, but they lost that game. But the last quarter and a half of the Colts game is the only time you've seen the offense do anything. Mm-hmm. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody saw this coming.
No, this is
with the Browns coach sitting in his basement at home.
You're right. He's not even there.
With his phone off by league demand.
I just, man, it's crazy what is going on right now. I don't have any explanation for it. It's something, that's for sure.
Yeah. But wow.
Yeah,
we shall see. We shall see.
Whew.
Only the Browns could.
And that, but see, this is what I think about so many teams. I feel like they can look so good. Like honestly, like it wouldn't surprise me that either the Ravens or Bills look awful next week.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, here you go. Does yeah, like the Ravens or Bills, like it wouldn't surprise me if that is like a 20-13 game. It wouldn't surprise me if that's like a 38-35 game. You know, both teams start getting their offense going and the other team can't really stop it.
Right.
Like, because if the Bills hop out to a big lead, the Ravens are in trouble. Because Lamar Jackson can pass. He can. But if you know they're going to pass every down, like that's a problem. And that's a problem for, like, who you can. That's a problem for almost every team.
Right.
Like, but yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how this is going.
All right. So the third game, then the game last night was Buccaneers at Washington, the NFC East champion, getting the host of the game. Despite the final score, only an 8-point spread, Tampa Bay was in control for the entire game. The biggest thing was that Washington was unable to get pressure on Tom Brady
At all.
Kudos to Penn State grad Donovan Smith for pretty much just taking out Chase Young.
How about also multiple times during the game they talked about how Tom Brady has said that Chris Godwin has the best hands of anyone he's ever played with.
That's awesome.
Like, they said it multiple times on the broadcast, and they're like, because they were making a big deal. They're like, think about that coming from Tom Brady, and all I can think about is, man, like, he played with Randy Moss, like, you know, like, but yeah,
pretty good, accolade to have in your back pocket.
Yeah,
and he could be. I mean, he's going to play a big role in that offense.
Right. But there you go. Like, you look at Tampa and you're like, like the first 5 minutes of the game, you're like, oh, here we go. Like, they're just going to blow the doors off them. And next thing you know, Washington scores to make it 18-16, but doesn't convert on the 2-point conversion. And you're like, okay, like.
Yeah, that was the oh crap moment.
Right. Like, all right. And then they went in, they scored a couple times. But, like, you're just like, okay, like, that wasn't what I was expecting from Brady. And, like, they made it look so easy at times, and then at other times it was like they're just spinning their wheels a little bit. Now, some of that is Washington. They weren't great, but I think they are better, especially that defense is better than what they got credit for because they played in the NFC East and because they
got 6 games against teams that were below average at best.
But, like, that defense is no joke. But like you said, man, Tampa's the offensive line, and that's the noteworthy thing, in my opinion, because when you look at the teams that are remaining in the NFC, like the Saints, well, if the Saints get pressure on you, that's what they need to do up front, right? But the Rams, like, that's what they are going to do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Packers is more of like a whole, as defense as a whole has been all right, but it'll be intriguing to kind of see how that plays out.
Will we get the age-old adage, the sports cliche of defense wins championships? Are we going to see a team that can stop people win? Or are we going to see an explosive offense win? Because obviously that's the Chiefs' MO.
Right.
That's probably the Bills' MO.
I feel like it shifted, and we see a lot of, you need situational defense. Like, you need, see a lot of what we used to refer to, and we still do, is like the bend, don't break.
Bend, don't break, and capitalize on turnovers.
Right. If you force a couple turnovers in the game, and you maybe 2 times in a game when they get in the red zone, force them to kick a field goal instead of get a touchdown, or when they're driving, you stop them and they maybe miss a field goal or something. Like, that's a missed field goal is like getting a turnover, you know, because you get the ball, especially
if you're kicking in like the 45, 50 yarders.
Right, that's like getting a turnover. Like, yeah, so it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out. But I think you're going to see some of the situational defenses because, like the Rams, their defense is playing great. But at some point, they're going to need to get a lot out of their offense, right? Like, if they're going against Tampa or Green Bay, like, I don't know that a great defense is going to be enough to just do it, get it done. But
Tom Brady was 22 of 40 for 381 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Leonard Fournette was the guy in the backfield. He had 19 carries for 93 yards and a score. A big game from Mike Evans, who was questionable to even play in that game.
And slow start for him, but then he
ended up with 119. You mentioned Godwin, 79 and a score. Gronkowski, no catches in the game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Washington, I mean,
but they did keep him in to block a bunch too,
Yeah,
and I think people are like, that's odd because like Brait is maybe the better blocker, but I think if Brady has more confidence, right, and if Brady has more confidence in Gronk, knowing what to do in each situation,
getting it done,
then
do your job.
Yeah, and hey, that's not to say that that's what it's going to look like next week, but this week it got the job done, and we lived to play another week at that point, right?
So Washington had to start Heineke at quarterback because Alex Smith was unable to go with injury. He was respectable, 26 of 44, 360 yards, a touchdown. He did throw one pick, but he was balling. I mean, he was trying. He was playing his hardest.
That touchdown run he had was so
nothing
cool.
to lose, and then he had a great touchdown run. So good for him. He kept it close against a team that a lot thought could be one of the best in the NFL, and they still have the ability to prove that as a Final 8 team, Final 4 in the NFC.
What gets me is that stat that every time Tom Brady has entered the playoffs on a 4-0, that can't be right. They showed a stat last night that said every time Tom Brady enters the playoffs on a 4-0 run, maybe they said he went to the Super Bowl. I thought they said he won the Super Bowl.
It didn't happen the year they went undefeated.
Right, so. That's what I just thought of. I'm like, that can't be true.
Maybe went to Super Bowl instead of
it must have been
Super
went.
Bowl.
Yeah.
So we have today's games then after the Buccaneers-Washington game. So those games were entertaining yesterday. Rams-Seahawks maybe, despite the 50 points, wasn't great. But Colts-Bills was fun. Bucs-Washington had its moments. Today we got started with Ravens at Titans. Again, this was one that we pretty much were guaranteeing that Baltimore would win. And that's what they ended up doing, going down to Tennessee to win 20-13. This one got very chippy and feisty. They apparently have a long history between the teams of late, and then of course years ago as well. And Tennessee,
especially in a game where I was rooting for the Ravens, but I don't have the emotional stake in the game that I would like if the Eagles are playing or something like that.
Unacceptable.
So like, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I'm loving every minute of it. It was great. It was great.
No, it wasn't great, but I mean, it's what I predicted, so I kind of like, it was indifferent. I don't have it doesn't really matter this much, but everyone knows my distaste for the Ravens stemming back to Ray Lewis. Like, that's literally what I'm holding on to. I don't like the Ravens because of Ray Lewis,
dude,
even though he hasn't been there for like, what?
That's
7
years.
That's
what fandom's
like
about. I still don't like the Steelers because of a 4-year stretch of my life. That's literally all it was. A 4-year stretch of my life changed my mind completely because I was like most people in this area who were like, "Oh, it's the Steelers, whatever," until that experience, and
Then you went and lived in Pittsburgh and watched them win a Super Bowl.
Oh gosh!
While you were there, right?
Yeah. The parade started behind my house, like 50 yards from my house.
So Baltimore and Tennessee. Tennessee had obviously scored that huge upset against them in Baltimore last year.
Yeah.
And then this year, the return trip, and they do it again in the regular season back in Week 11.
Right.
And apparently, and you can maybe tell this better than I could because I didn't even know any of this had happened. But before the game in Week 11,
right,
the
Titans were dancing
organized at the logo,
right, and we're dancing, kind of facing the Ravens and taunting. I think somewhat stemming back to last year's playoff victory,
where the Titans just ran all over them.
The Ravens may have tried, but couldn't do anything about it to stop them in Week 11. And Derrick Henry ran all over them again and all that stuff. Well, today was the opposite, and they get the big pick late, which ended up essentially icing the game because they were able to get the first down.
And the receiver fell down. Like, it was just such a crap. And it went to Marcus Peters, who's almost as bad as Ray Lewis. I don't think he's killed anyone, but...
but the fact that we can say don't think, like...
I'm not sure.
But, so, and then they went and choreographed the dance, celebration on the logo, and, oh my gosh, absolutely is a penalty. is it petty?
Well, I texted
Yes,
you
like,
and Adam.
is
I was
it
like,
as-
how is that not a penalty? I was like, of
But,
all the
like-
things they penalized before
Right.
they eased the celebration rules,
Right.
that's something, because not only was it like during the game,
right.
you had guys running onto the field that weren't on the field. Some of them didn't have helmets on, and then they were literally pointing and screaming and waving to the other
Right,
sideline.
right.
Like, if you're gonna throw a flag for unsportsmanlike conduct, now's the time to do it. And by the time I had typed that out, they
Right,
started to
right.
announce the penalty.
They did.
So,
And then their first play to throw it, and
well, yeah. I was like, what are
and
they
Hollywood
doing?
Brown was open. So like if he hits him, like okay, you get a first down. But even there, you get a first down. They still have all their timeouts. You're still gonna have to you would still need another first
You still
down.
have to do something with it.
So like it was just weird.
And at
I think they thought that everyone's like, oh, they're just
They're
gonna
gonna
run
the
it
ball. They're
3
gonna give it
times,
to
like
Dobbins or Edwards,
right. And then
or let Jackson take it
on second down, Jackson runs it for 30 yards, and it
33
didn't
yards.
matter.
Yeah,
So
and then it didn't matter, right?
um,
But obviously, I don't like that. I don't really care what happened in Week 11.
No,
especially
I
because it was
know.
pregame. You know, it
Right,
was
right,
like
right.
you could have taken care of business then, and you didn't.
Absolutely.
Now, do I want my team? If I'm the coach, do I want my team doing that either way? No,
No.
because that you set yourself up for these kind of
Right,
things.
right. And you could see, I think it puts Vrabel and Harbaugh in a weird spot because they've got to defend their guys.
Right.
And some of it, as that coach, you probably hate when the other team does it, but well, we should have stopped them, all that stuff. But but at the same time, you're the one who has to go out there and be like, I don't know what they're doing. At the end of the game, you're the one that has to answer for it.
Right.
Peters, he might get asked about it, but the players aren't. It's just interesting.
The manufacturer.
It's easy to me. It's easier to do it in the postseason game because the Titans are done now.
Right. No, you're right. If you're going to respond,
right,
this is
Week
better.
11 is an interesting thing because but at the time, the Titans were basically like, yeah, we're going to do this, and you can't stop us, and they couldn't. They took it to the Ravens again. But like you said, all of these things, all of those things, just they circle around, especially in the NFL. This isn't like a college where the one team is just so much better than the other, and they're going to beat you every time, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's not what this is.
No.
This is the NFL, and two of the playoff-worthy teams, the differences between these teams are so small, and the littlest thing. And should that provide extra motivation one way or the other? No, but does it? Yes.
We hear all the time that teams don't like to play a divisional team again in the playoffs because it's hard to beat a team 2 or 3 times.
Right.
If you went 2-0, you don't want to play them a third time. You already beat them twice. You don't want to have that
Right.
opportunity.
Right.
Because even though people be like, well, you beat them twice already. Well, it's so hard beating them a third time. That's not how the NFL works. It's set up for parity that
Right.
eventually everything's going to even out. You would think.
Right.
There are
you think
obviously
between
exclusions, but-
fairly even matched divisional opponents, a 60-40 advantage would be a huge advantage.
And yes, we know Tennessee and Baltimore are not in the same division.
Right.
We're
Used to be.
talking in general. Yeah.
But
right.
but that they get to that point where if you have a 60-40 advantage, sounds huge, and it is big. That's bigger than probably what most of the divisional matchups really are. But okay, if you start to do the math, getting that 3 times in a row starts to get pretty sketchy, So
Yeah, I understand. The Ravens were going into this; they felt disrespected, and
Right.
people the Titans had whipped them the last 2 times they played them.
Yep.
But there was also this weird manufactured put down of Lamar Jackson this week by a lot of people saying he hadn't been able to win a playoff game. He's played 2 playoff games.
Right, and that's
I was
weird
just
because
what the heck?
it's weird because to me, and it's not when I say the same people, I don't literally mean the same people, but the same outlets that are saying was ESPN calling that game? I think they were.
It was on ABC.
Right. But all over ESPN, you're hearing people all the time who are this is the narrative, Lamar Jackson can't win a playoff game. And then you also have people in the state. Now I understand there are massive numbers of people who are giving their opinions and takes and calling games on there, who are it's been 2 games, it's been 2 games, but it's
Now you get to 0-5. Okay.
right
Now,
well and I heard
Brandon.
this week, and the person's look, I'm not saying he's the next Peyton Manning, but Peyton Manning started his playoff career 0-3. He's relax. He's also the youngest player to ever win the Heisman. He's also the youngest player to ever win NFL MVP.
The youngest player to ever start a playoff game.
Right. So relax. He just turned 24 like yesterday.
3 days ago.
Yeah, so like, relax.
Yeah,
In the words
it's
of
fine.
another great quarterback not playing this week, but playing next week.
I obviously I have a problem with the Ravens as
No,
is.
I
don't.
got
I mean, I don't really like Marcus Peters, but
No,
I
and
don't have a problem
neither
with
do I.
Lamar Jackson. You know, I don't like that J.K. Dobbins went to Ohio State, but let bygones
Right,
be
but-
bygones.
but-
That's over.
right.
Like,
Right, and it's one of those where, like, to be honest, like, I only really kind of have that affinity to him for a couple reasons. One, like, I have family from Baltimore, so, like, for a while, and they're not a natural rival of the Eagles, like, because they're in the AFC.
Right.
And they are a natural rival of the Steelers, so, like...
They are.
And
you hate the Steelers
enemy,
so much.
An enemy
You
of
are
an enemy
so
is...
anti-Steelers. I just want to make sure when Jamie listens that we point out how
gosh.
much you hate the Steelers.
Well, so here's the thing. Like, not only will she be mad about the Steelers, but I'll also get I will not be, like, gloating about that at all. But I'll also get that. She's like, it'll be like...
Aren't you happy?
You're enjoying this
You're
so
so
much.
happy.
You're enjoying this.
I remember when it was Packers Steelers in the Super Bowl that year, man, and
Sitting
we
at your
got
parents'
watched
house.
it at my parents' house. I was just like, ooh,
I was just sitting
it's,
there
less than ideal.
on the inside, leaping for joy. That was still young in our relationship.
Yeah, that was.
Was that?
Were you even engaged yet?
No, I don't think so. What? Well, I
Was
don't
that
know.
2010 season, 2011 Super Bowl.
I think it was. So then we would have been engaged.
I was
going
gonna
to
say because you were. Yeah, I think you had been engaged for like 6 months or
Yeah,
something like that, 8
yeah.
months, whatever it was. Yeah, I remember that one. I was just like, sorry, Justin. I apologize.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry.
All right, so Baltimore gets the win, beats Tennessee, sends the Titans home. Ravens waiting to see who they'll play. Still technically are, unless the Browns have a meltdown. Baltimore will be headed to Buffalo.
They just picked off Ben at midfield again.
Oh boy. Then the last two games of Super Wildcard Weekend appear to be really disappointing and downers, and not very exciting unless
No.
you're a Browns fan. Bears Saints in New Orleans. Saints win 21-9, but that game was just not entertaining at all. And I saw someone saying, because this was simulcast on Nickelodeon, trying to get a younger audience, and they did a good job with production. I can't really comment on the commentary aspect. I didn't listen to it.
Right.
We just had it muted in the background. But the girls were very interested in the slime zone when that happened. But the game itself, they're like, this is a poor game to have to try to get kids interested in football because it wasn't exciting at all. But New Orleans gets the win 21-9. Drew Brees lives to see another day.
Right, and that's kind of how I felt in this game. So I'm like, oh man, I wouldn't mind seeing the Bears win, but I was like, Drew Brees deserves better than that. Like to go out like that at home, like a one and done in the playoffs. I say that, like, I don't know. Saints are. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Like, it's kind of manufactured, but like that. Just that weird vibe between the Eagles and Saints. Like, I don't necessarily buy into all of that, and not the Saints in general. Just like because I like Drew Brees, like,
and I asked you, I was like, "What's with the Eagles people hating the Saints?"
Juwan Johnson's there. Like, I like Juwan Johnson.
Alex Anzalone, local
yeah.
product from Why Missing. So the fun thing on NFL Sunday, or honestly, whenever I have any sporting event on, and my girls are in the room, and if they sit down to watch with me or whether they're just there, they're interested because I'm interested, and they always ask, who are we rooting for? And they want me to tell them who we're rooting for. Now, sometimes Haley will go off and just pick the opposite just because that's who she is.
Right, yeah.
But usually they are listening to who I want to win, and they want to know why, too. But, like, today for Bears Saints, I was really like, I don't, like, I pick the Saints, so I guess we want the Saints, and then it's like, well, which one are they? I was like, well, they're wearing black and gold. That's the Saints. But it didn't matter to me.
No, I know. And that's how I felt about a number of the games.
The Bears have Allen Robinson. You know, I want Allen Robinson to do well, and Matt Nagy is from, you know, the area, quote unquote, or the league that Wilson plays in, and familiar with Manheim Central, and so that's fun connection. You always like to see the people from teams that you play against or know to do well. It's just
Right.
fun connection to hear people talk about. But then like the Saints, you're like most of the time I like Drew Brees and I want Alex Anzalone to do good, and there's always other connections like you said, Jawan Johnson.
I know.
I
I
just
know.
like
I
I
kind
didn't
of.
really care.
That's how I feel about a lot of them. To be honest, well, and we can talk about like really the Rams. I don't really like. I don't really like the Titans. And here's the thing: I love watching Derrick Henry play. Like I do, and Ryan Tannehill. Like I kind of like. How can you not like? I don't like Mike Vrabel.
I know you don't like Mike Vrabel.
And he was
I mean,
with
if
the
anyone,
Patriots,
I should not
the
like Mike
Patriots
Vrabel.
and Ohio State. I just can't do it. Now I understand though, like you don't like the Ravens, so like in that matchup specifically, like yeah, I can understand that, but like
But
I
Bears
can't
Saints
do
just
it.
didn't matter. To
No,
me.
I know.
Like,
I look
that's
at it, and I'm just like, whatever.
It didn't really matter. I mean, the Saints won. I expected them to win, and I wanted them to win. If you had to pick one, that's who I would have
Right.
picked, and that's who they won. But it was really an uneventful game. Trubisky didn't even hit 200 yards passing. It was at 199. No one obviously saw the end zone.
So did Nagy save his job though?
From on the ground? I don't know.
I know. Like I don't know what to
I
think
don't know,
there.
but like, did Trubisky are they both gonna be gone?
I think it's either one or like either they're both back or they're both gone. By gone, I think Trubisky's on the team next year, but I feel like you're either completely resetting or you're not.
Well, that's my question. So you're at what we always say all the time: the worst possible spot to be in.
Yeah.
You're mediocre, but now you made the playoffs, so you
They were
have
like
the worst.
right.
Draft
They were
pick.
like the worst. Well, you could argue Washington, but like they're like the worst playoff team. That's the worst possible thing you could. Actually, I guess the worst possible thing is to be the best non-playoff team.
Thank you.
But sorry, not sorry. But like because you have other picks too, so that helps you.
Yeah.
That helps you.
That's the silver lining.
Which they could trade Tua and the
I don't
Dolphins
know. I mean,
picks.
we could honestly talk for at least
Right,
a half an hour
right.
about that, and we have another game to talk to about yet.
But so when you do that, like I'm just like, well, I don't know. Like I don't know what they should do. The Packers seem to have figured it out, although the Jordan Love pick seems to be a waste of a pick right now.
Well,
Like,
but I mean, if he sits for at least next year,
You're right.
and,
You're right.
Because Aaron Rodgers didn't start to his fourth year in the league, third year in the league.
they got him in the first round, didn't
Yeah,
they?
he was picked 25 or something.
So
like
that's
that.
nice because you get the extra year.
Yeah, so
So maybe as of right now,
he needs to be starting by, I would say, year 3, because I feel like you need to have.
Right.
Well, he has to be starting by year 3 because you have to pick it up your 5th year option before your 4th
after
year.
the third year
Right.
is when you
so
have
you
to
would
pick it
have
up.
to expect that him to at least, or they got to trade him,
Right.
or you just not
Now,
going to pick up.
now
the
here's
option.
an interesting. If you trade a guy a first round pick, can that team pick up the option?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if that.
I think it might change when they
Right,
have to
right,
pick it up,
right.
possibly. But they do get that year built
Okay.
in, the opportunity to build that year in.
But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But they're doing it again, and they'll just they'll be able to add some pieces. So they're really interesting. Detroit is going to be, I would assume, in a rebuild, right?
Yeah.
You don't know, but I
Well,
imagine
I saw on Pro Football Talk, they had ranked the openings
yeah.
based on if Mike Florio was approached to be the head coach, what would his thinking be? And he wanted nothing to do with the Lions or Falcons because there was at least one, if not two other people above him making decisions. So a GM or a football operations and a GM.
Right.
And you have an aging quarterback or roster with Stafford or Matt Ryan and Julio Jones.
Right.
Also, they have cap issues.
Right.
So he had them. Are there 6 openings right now?
As of right now, there are 6 openings.
So I believe he had Chargers as the best opening because of having Herbert and some of the other.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that.
Which
that
is
we think
interesting,
the
though,
Chargers
because
is an interesting
they've
one.
talked for a long time that the Chargers have a terrible front office and players used to want to go to San Diego. Who wouldn't want to go to San Diego? But there's reasons like that. They have holdouts every year. Well, used to.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a little different now, but used to have problems signing their draft picks every year because they were notoriously just bad deals for. It's all relative, and I know you're making millions of dollars, but like when every other team seems to have it kind of figured out, and
Right.
your guy is the last one to sign every year, people are like, no, that's just like a known thing. But that could be changing, and they do have the guy. Like they do have the guy, so.
Jaguars was second because you have the number 1 pick.
And you've got a lot of draft.
But of course, then the
capital
owner
there,
came out and said he was going to be more like, basically said he was going to be more like Jerry Jones now. And it's just like, I don't know if that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I believe he had Jets third, I think.
Okay.
And then he said if it wasn't one of those 3, he wouldn't take the job. He'd wait another year. But the next appealing one to him, even with the front office issues, is the Texans because of Deshaun Watson. So if you can get him to be happy and stay, but like not having the draft pick,
That's interesting too.
But
That
he
story,
liked the Texans better than the Falcons and the Lions.
I agree with that because you have the quarterback and the quarterback's young.
If you're getting him to stay,
Right,
That's
but-
the whole thing.
But how like that story was weird, and then it comes out that not only did they not listen to Deshaun Watson and apparently other team leaders, but they hired for hundreds of thousands of dollars a search firm, take the results of the search firm, which pretty much reinforced
And just
the team's thoughts,
Threw it up in the air.
and he hired somebody that wasn't even a part of the process for the search firm. Like, listen, you're the owner. Do your thing. But I also understand when like you say like, "Hey, we want your input," and then you don't even
listen at all.
you don't even play the game to make it seem like, "Hey, I can understand why." Like to me, that's more frustrating than them saying like, "No, listen, like I know this probably wouldn't play well, but like you're the franchise quarterback, I'm the owner, like I'm making these calls." Like at least but to say like, "Hey, I want your input," and then to not listen to it at all, that is worse in my opinion. Like
Yeah, it's just
like
weird.
why
It's
would you
super
do
weird.
that? Like
No,
why?
I just don't
And I
get it.
feel like that's kind of where Watson's at right now. Like why would you do that? Like why would you ask me my opinion and then
Not
just
care
not-
about what I had to say.
right, not even at least go through the motions of it. Like you don't have. It takes nothing for them to just interview one of the guys Watson said. Like it doesn't take anything to do that. And
Yeah.
and it's coming out, and it's come out a lot there that like O'Brien is the fall guy, and I'm not saying he didn't make any of the bad decisions, but apparently, like
There's
and-
more going on there than
Right,
just him.
it was above him. Like the idea to trade Watson came from above him, and he's the one who had to execute it, but it came from above him.
So both the
Not Watson.
I know what
Hopkins.
you're saying. Yeah. Both the Eagles and Dolphins are in search of an offensive coordinator, and Bill O'Brien's out there. Just saying, just pointing that
Eagles
out.
may be in search of a coach. Who knows?
That's true. Who knows what's going to happen? But let's before we finish here, why don't we go over our expectations for the divisional round?
Okay.
So, you want to start in the NFC or the AFC?
Let's start in the NFC because it's officially set.
Okay, you're true. So, Packers are your 1 seed. They are going to host the Los Angeles Rams. Rams at Packers. What are you thinking here?
So I think the Rams defense will give the Packers some issues.
They have a problem putting teams away.
Yeah. I
The
think
Packers do.
right, but I think the Packers kind of have like a chip on their shoulder in the sense of like they heard everyone talk about how they were the worst 13-3 team of all time last year.
Including us.
Right, which they kind of showed that maybe they were. But then, like, I feel like I wasn't a believer in them, and they've shown vulnerabilities, but I don't know that the Rams are going to be able to score a ton on them. Like, because, again, their defense has been good enough. And if you're asking me who I'm taking, like, Jared Goff healthy or Aaron Rodgers, or Jared Goff banged up against Aaron Rodgers, like, I'm taking Aaron Rodgers no matter what in that situation. Like, I think the Packers are going to be good to go. Oh, imagine having a broken thumb, having surgery on it, and now you got to go play at Lambeau in the middle of January.
Yeah, not good. It's not good components there.
And who knows if you'll have Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald? Like had that
Had an
weird chest
issue, yeah.
injury.
I think, and I texted this to you guys, I think Jalen Ramsey against Devontae Adams, if they do a one-on-one, I think that'll be interesting.
That'll be incredible
but
to watch.
Aaron Rodgers is so locked in right now and on fire that I don't think it'll matter. He'll
And
figure
here's
it
the thing.
out.
You take Jalen Ramsey and put him on him, he's going to get the other guys. Like,
Right,
he'll get the other guys.
Yeah, he's going to throw it to Lazard and Valdez-Scantling,
And is
Aaron Jones.
Is Tunyon a
forgetting about
great
him.
name for a Green Bay tight end?
Robert
Oh, my
Tonyan.
gosh.
Yeah. So I do. I think the Packers, I think it'll be close by a touchdown.
Yeah, I don't think they
You
blow
know,
them out, but I think I'm taking the Packers.
I'm taking the Packers for that one as well. Now we get a divisional rematch for the third time this year. This time it'll be Tampa Bay going back to New Orleans to take on the Saints. So, what are you thinking about Bucks at Saints?
I'm taking the Bucks for the reasons we talked about before. One, I was surprised they got blown out by them twice already. The Bucks showed the ability that they've adapted to the pass rush against Washington. Now, Washington's a little different because they just like to bring the four. The Saints aren't afraid to blitz. So it's not the exact same scenario. But I just the Saints won today, but it didn't look great. You know what I mean?
It did not look great at all.
Now, to be fair, they looked much better last week than I thought they were going to when they didn't have any running backs.
Right.
So
And then the week before, Kamara had 6 touchdowns.
well, and he couldn't even really practice. He was practicing virtually this week.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to kind of see what goes there. I feel like I'm gonna pick the Bucks, and then watch the Saints win. It'll be like fool me once, Yeah. They blew them out twice, but we said it's hard to beat a team 3 times, and it's hard to beat a team as good as the Bucks 3 times.
Yeah. Now, this sets up something interesting because I'm also going with you. I'm going to say Tampa Bay pulls the upset because New Orleans beat them twice. New Orleans is the home team and I think favored right now, but I think it's one of those home
Probably.
team, no travel favors. It's 2.5, 3 points
Right.
or so. I don't know. Because you know that I respect Tom Brady's accomplishments, but I don't like Tom Brady. I don't want the Buccaneers.
No, I want the
because
Saints to
of
win.
him. I want the Saints to win absolutely in this matchup, despite all the people that I do like in Tampa Bay, including
Right.
Bruce Arians and Chris Godwin. I don't know. For some reason, probably what you said, this is the third time playing. They lost to him twice already. It's tough to beat a team 3 times. The Saints just haven't looked good, and Tampa Bay's looked better.
Right.
Brady's been on fire, and it's hard to pick against Brady in the playoffs, even at this point in time.
Has Tom Brady? I'm willing to bet Tom Brady's never lost to a team 3 times in a season.
That would be because
I can't imagine he has.
It would had to have been the Jets, Bills, or Dolphins, and they haven't played any of them except the Jets in the playoffs.
Right,
And that was maybe twice.
Well, and they talked about when the Bills beat them both times. It was the first time that the Patriots had lost to the same AFC East team twice in a season in how long or
Probably
something like that.
17 years or something.
Right. So
that.
I bet he's never lost to the same team 3 times in a season. No. To be fair, most quarterbacks probably haven't lost to a
there
team
probably
3
aren't too
times.
many out there, especially ones that as notorious as he is. But the reason I say this sets up something is because I've been waiting just before the playoffs started when we thought we knew the teams and then the teams that are in to figure out which team that everyone likes is going to falter and when can I pick against the Packers and pick against the Buccaneers. Well, if they both win next week, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do because Green Bay, Tampa Bay is, I don't want to say worst case scenario for me because I don't really like Aaron Rodgers, but I don't have anything against the Packers. And I would rather root for the Buccaneers, but I can't root for Tom Brady.
Right.
And I feel like I felt like those
Well,
teams were going to underachieve in the playoffs.
That's the thing. If this were, they probably wouldn't be in this spot. But if this were last year's team with Jameis Winston, who I don't really like, but pro Jameis Winston, I'm indifferent about.
Right.
Florida State Jameis Winston, I couldn't stand.
Yeah.
But pro Jameis Winston, what do I care?
Right.
If this were them against the Packers, in a future NFC, I'd be like, come on, Bucks. Between Chris Godwin and Bruce Arians, I'd be excited for those guys.
So I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna say that the NFC Championship is gonna be Tampa Bay at Green Bay. which I'm sure Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers relish because that was their one humiliating defeat. I mean, they lost 3 games this year, but the humiliating was in Tampa Bay, and what was that, week 5 or 6, something like that?
Yeah. Got doors blown off. They scored. They went up early, and then Tampa
Bay destroyed them and really made them look bad. So they would get them at home at Lambeau. I know it hasn't made as big a difference this year, but you got to think that they would be ready for that opportunity. But again, do you want to pick against Tom Brady in the playoffs? It's going to be tough. So if it ends up being Bucs Packers as we're both predicting, oh man, I'm gonna have a rough time in the NFC. And then if it would be Bills Ravens, well, I guess it can't be now. In the AFC Championship game because they're going to play next week. Woo! Saved me there. Not that I really like the Browns. I'm all in on the Chiefs. I mean, obviously. Like, completely 100% all in on the Chiefs.
I was Ravens, Browns would be very interesting. Like, I don't want it to be that, but I'm just saying, like, there are storylines there.
Right, here we go. Last week I was like, there's no way Cleveland's beating Pittsburgh in the playoffs. And now I'm going to say there's no way Cleveland's beating Kansas City coming off a bye with Patrick Mahomes and that arsenal on offense. There is no way. No way. I hope I'm not jinxing them. I didn't help Pittsburgh at all. I just can't imagine. Hey, Pittsburgh didn't lose this quarter. They didn't win this quarter, but they didn't lose this quarter.
Hey, yeah.
So now they just need to slowly chip away in the second half.
They actually did. They just scored a touchdown.
Oh, so this is delayed, you're saying?
I think they just scored a touchdown.
Oh, so this is way delayed then. All right. We had a really bad first quarter.
I know.
Second quarter was okay. Third and fourth quarter, all they need is what, 22 points to win the game. I assume they kicked the extra point. Maybe they went for 2. I don't know.
Maybe they would.
But all right, let's do the AFC then.
Okay.
So, assuming Cleveland wins, because that's all we're going with right now as we're recording. Cleveland at Kansas City.
I don't know that. I don't think they can score to keep up with Kansas City, and I don't think their defense is good enough to slow Kansas City down.
I was going to say, can they hold Kansas City to less than 23 points?
No.
I don't think there's any way that's possible.
Kansas City's the only way Kansas City doesn't
Kansas
score
City
23
lost
points.
One meaningful game this year to the
also,
Raiders.
Andy Reid off the bye.
That's what I said. I was like, off the bye? No way. So Kansas City is beating Cleveland for
essentially a double bye because a lot of the guys didn't play.
So they should be well rested. Now, should Pittsburgh come back all the way and win this game, what about Baltimore at Kansas City?
That provides an interesting one because you have the contrast of style. So, like, if Kansas City can't stop the run and it turns it more into a grinding thing, or even there, like, I know it doesn't look the same as a shootout, but if they can't stop the run and then, like, Baltimore's just kind of scoring with them, like, that could be interesting. I think Baltimore's a worse matchup because I think their defense is better than Cleveland's.
I agree.
So I'm thinking they're kind of hoping that this holds. Let me rephrase that. I don't think they care because they're NFL players and they're confident they can beat whoever. You know what I mean? But I would imagine if I was a true Chiefs fan, I'd be hoping I want to play right. I want to play Cleveland, not Baltimore, because I'm more afraid of Lamar Jackson than I am of Baker Mayfield.
Heck yes.
I'm more afraid of Baltimore's defense than I am of Cleveland's defense.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland has some more other weapons. Like, I'm more afraid of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt than I am of J.K. Dobbins.
And Gus Edwards.
But
see, Lamar Jackson has to be included in that.
Right. So if you're talking about the running game, I'm more afraid of Baltimore's running game because it's different, too. It's different. Like,
it's not ground and pound.
Right. Like,
it's RPO.
Right.
It's reads.
Baker Mayfield's not running for 130 yards against me.
No.
You know what I mean?
If he does, we lose.
By a lot. Like, you lose by a lot. Well, the Chiefs may not lose by it. But you know what I mean? Like, but yeah. But they were talking about how the Chiefs have the ability, Dan Orlovsky, who I really like.
He's a fun follow, yeah.
He was talking about how the Chiefs have the ability to play that 3 safety, like to roll out a third safety, which not all teams have that ability based on their personnel, like on their team. That gives the Ravens a lot of trouble. So that could be interesting because they can come down and stop the run, but they can also defend the pass.
So Chiefs, no matter who they play, whether it's Browns or Ravens.
Taking the Chiefs, right?
All right, right now it's looking like set up to be Bills hosting the Ravens.
Right.
Who do you have there?
I'm taking the Bills because I just think they've been well-rounded. They've been more consistent throughout the year. Although the Ravens have been showing it lately, like I don't know. I feel like the Bills just have that factor right now. It'll be interesting to see because I know we talked about it's a bit manufactured, but like Lamar has that playoff victory now. Like if he plays looser, like that could be really dangerous, for going up against it. But I think Buffalo. I think Buffalo is more well-rounded. But I don't know. If you look at the last third of the season, I'd say that's a really even game.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to go Buffalo because I think they've been more consistent throughout the year, whereas the Ravens had some downtime and issues, and I feel like today was an emotional win for them,
right?
Whether it needed to be or not. I think they maybe went a little over the top about it.
I don't think they went far enough.
So I'm not sure they're going to be as focused and dedicated this week as they were next week as they were this week. But again, I said this earlier, I think both the Bills and Ravens could have a really crash-to-earth week because we've seen so often teams that were so hot in the middle end of the year, all of a sudden that's when they have a hiccup, and it's at the worst time.
And I could see, and that's the thing with the Bills, like you said, first playoff win in 25 years.
Right, could they have the letdown? They got that monkey off their back, but now,
and they got to do it at home in front of fans for the first time.
Well, I think about in 2007 when the Phillies made that miraculous comeback to win the division, and then they looked awful in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
Now, the next year, things went really well.
Right, they played better than anybody else for a month.
But then it caught
maybe
up to
two.
them. Yeah, and then it caught up.
And then they played their worst week of baseball.
I'm wondering if that could happen to the Bills or the Ravens. Could that happen? But I'm still going to go Buffalo if it's Bills against Ravens. What if it's Bills against Steelers? Does that change your mind at all?
Well,
even
then
with the Steelers come back?
Then I take the Bills.
You still take the Bills.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I because of this
the Bills. I trust the Bills defense a heck of a lot more than I trust. Well, sorry, I was thinking the Browns. But in terms of if the Steelers were to come back on the Browns, that would surprise me a lot less than if the Browns or than the Steelers coming back against the Bills or being able to do that to the Bills, right? Like
it would have been
Browns defense. If Denzel Ward's playing it, if the Browns are at full strength, I view that as one thing. But
I am gonna go with the Bills, even if the Steelers have this comeback, just because the Steelers haven't played well over the last 6 weeks. All right, so then that sets up most likely to us Chiefs-Bills. So Packers, Bucks, and Chiefs-Bills, and I know for 100% fact that I am all in on the Chiefs if that's the matchup.
Oh my gosh,
because it's the only thing that could be worse for me is if it was Ravens-Bills in the AFC Championship game, because I can't root for the Bills. I'm a Dolphins fan. I don't like the Ravens. I don't want Tom Brady. I'm default have to be a Packers fan, and I don't like that because I don't really like Aaron Rodgers.
So a Ravens or Bills against Tampa Bay is
is the nightmare scenario? Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't have a ton of the nightmare scenarios right now. I used to be all in on the, can't stand Jared Goff because he's getting compared to Carson Wentz. Goff has his own issues out there right now. But, at the same time, the Eagles and Wentz haven't held up their part of that bargain right now. And so, I can't really... Honestly, some of that has died off for me.
Honestly, if it was Tampa Bay against Baltimore or Buffalo, I'm rooting for Tampa Bay.
No, I can say
because Tom Brady's just one person. I don't like him, but he made it worse when he was with the Patriots because I didn't like the Patriots.
I wholeheartedly agree.
So him with the Bucks, at least I can root for Chris Godwin.
See, and it's kind of the opposite of that, but that's kind of how I felt when they were playing the Rams. When the Patriots were playing the Rams in the Super Bowl, I was like, this means nothing for the Patriots. Tom Brady gets another Super Bowl, the Patriots get another Super Bowl, okay. But it meant the Rams didn't get a Super Bowl. That meant more to me as a not fan of the Rams than it did, okay, Tom Brady has more Super Bowls than anybody. Well, yep, that's the same. Nothing changed.
Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, we could go for another half an hour talking about this insane scenario of the Dolphins trying to get Deshaun Watson. Although, honestly, I think it's more someone was trying to come up with something that would get impressions on social media and saying that this could happen. Do the Dolphins have the ammo? Yeah, thanks to the Texans.
So here's the one question I was going to say to you. So if they said Tua and the Dolphins' first round picks this year,
So the 18th.
or sorry,
overall.
18th, and the Dolphins' second round pick.
So 18 and 50
So Tua 18 and 50
for Watson straight up.
for Watson straight up.
I think you honestly see what I don't like about this is there is no
I know.
like
That
Deshaun
doesn't-
Watson is a top 5, top 10 easy quarterback, possibly top 5.
Right.
And if you put him in Miami,
If his team is 500, he might win the MVP this year.
Right.
Maybe. Like
if you put him in Miami, who now still has the 3rd and 36th pick,
right.
and money in free agency,
Right.
that you add some weapons.
So if it was that straight up for me, I'd do it if I'm the Dolphins in a heartbeat.
I
shouldn't say
it-
heartbeat. It's tough. But
I mean, I don't like giving up on a young quarterback 1 year into things.
Right,
but
but,
you're getting
like-
now a veteran quarterback still on a good, like
Right.
a decent deal based on things.
Right.
The way things
You can
have gone.
argue though that even if Tua goes on to be an MVP caliber player, you're not. You
All that-
wouldn't be taking a downgrade, but you would be giving up 2 picks and that like.
Yeah, I don't. You're essentially giving the Texans back their picks to get an established, athletic quarterback.
Right.
My only trepidation there is like giving up on your number 5 pick from a year ago. But we saw the Cardinals do that with Rosen,
Right.
who was a number
Here's
10
the thing, though.
overall
I
pick.
don't think that would do it. I think the Texans would want more.
Oh no!
And at that point, I say no.
If they want 3 of those 4 picks, I don't know that I do.
No,
it.
I don't do it.
Although I'm sure there's plenty of people that say you're crazy.
Oh,
It would be
absolutely.
crazy not
Absolutely.
to do that because you have a known quantity.
Right.
But the problem is, Miami has fewer weapons than the Texans do.
Yeah.
Because Miami has
Well,
David Johnson and
we've talked about this. Look at what they can provide with those. How many picks do they have in the top? Like
4 in the top 50.
4 in the top 50. Like they can add a ton of talent.
It's 3, 18,
as it
36,
is.
and 50.
And look, Tua wasn't even cleared for football activity for a while. Then this offseason of all off seasons to bring him in, he's coming off of his femur broke through the back of his pelvis. All right, and like, yeah,
He was
that's
considered
insane.
the number
It
1
was-
overall pick for the last draft.
It was the injury
for a long time.
It's the injury that ended Bo Jackson's career.
Right.
Like that's the injury it was. Now,
Thankfully, it's 30 years later.
30 years later, and they knew exactly what to look for. Doc came in and talked to my class, and this is one of the stories he talked about, like why it was different now than it was then. It was fascinating, and I know you would have loved to say.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, those stories that he told were incredible. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, depending on what they want, I'm only hesitant because Miami needs to keep some of those picks. And I just...
By the way,
I
the
don't
Browns answered the Steelers' touchdown with a touchdown
know.
with
Are you serious?
30 seconds left in the
Oh,
half.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, it just sets up the comeback even more for the Steelers. Here it comes. So,
But yeah,
here
so
we
like,
go.
if it was just those 3, I could absolutely see doing it. If I'm not, now here's the thing: you get the right offensive coordinator hire here. Like that's a big step. That's a big step.
I guess if it's Bill O'Brien, I don't think Deshaun's going to be ending up in Miami anytime soon. Then.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think Bill O'Brien for Tua could be a good hire. They got a New England connection. I wouldn't write that off.
Right. No, there is a definite connection there. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I just know that it's something that's on the table. So.
Speaking of offense coordinators, I like the move that Penn State made. I feel bad that Soraka didn't really get a chance to fully establish himself, but this is that aside. Like, I look at these as separate issues. That is one issue, and I feel bad for him in that sense.
Yeah.
This is the guy I wanted Penn State to get 3 years ago. Like, this is the guy I want.
When he went to Ohio State.
When he went to Ohio State, that's what I got.
Mike Yursich.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shippensburg guy.
Yep.
So it's a fun connection. It was an interesting story. I read the Audrey Snyder articles about
Right.
it. So very fun, very interesting, and hopefully it works out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That obviously.
I mean, I was high on Shiraka, so
I know.
that was
I know.
really disappointing.
I was too. And I'm more in now because, like I said, I've been on this guy since
For a few years now,
right.
since
So-
he was leaving Oklahoma State.
Yes.
All right, well, we hope everyone enjoyed episode 323 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, where we talked about Super Wildcard Weekend, and we'll be back on January 17th, same time, 8:30 in the evening, on a variety of broadcast platforms, including Twitch now, as Justin and I ramp up for something we're going to announce in the next few weeks. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a review on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts. And check out JMN, JR Radio, and the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show pretty much everywhere. We appreciate everyone following along, watching, or listening. And we'll be back to talk about the divisional round matchups that we predicted and probably predicted wrong in 1 week's time.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again real soon.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your emails to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as The Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.